Yeah, Perky and I and a number of other folks, Corey Edwards, who's still with Bethesda, Jean Simonet, who amazing Bluetooth Pixels Dice. Go check out pixelsdice.com. A bunch of us actually from Blood Rain 2 went and worked on Oblivion and Fallout 3. Fallout 3 in particular was like this really transformational project, right? Like we as a studio at Bethesda at that time were like growing and like kind of like grappling with the new IP for us, right? Grappling with like a lot of new blood from the team that came on to like finish Oblivion. And yeah, like so Perky and I and Jean and Corey and others like came from that team in Texas. And what we found is like we were Perky and I and others like were really early in our career, really young, and figuring out like how to make our name, like on this like established project and this IP that we had such a huge amount of respect for. And what that led to was like a lot of creative problem solving, where like now we're collaborating across departments, we're collaborating across like people who are like, old school Bethesda and like sort of the new blood Bethesda that we were at the time. And that really left an imprint. Like it was transformational for me as a developer and as like a collaborator. I think it was for Perky as well, and some of our other teammates. And so I think if you see like a synchronicity, like, Nate and I worked on so much together over the years that, I think it makes sense that he's doing this, like his solo dev career has been like so amazing to watch.
Axis Unseen, yeah.
Yeah, I mean Axis, and then he just did this like the sort of ridiculous like car parkour thing that he made like very quickly. Yeah, he's just working on something new right now. Likewise, like I'm very much not like a solo dev the way that Perky is, but like really wanting to kind of recapture some of like the working dynamic of that time, right? Of like really like trying to like endeavor to have this like intimate understanding of like the strengths and the aspirations of like the people you're creating with, and then use that to like make the best version of whatever you're building possible. And it's harder the bigger you get on any team to have the space for all of that influence, like to get the best of what everyone has to offer.
We talked about it a little bit off camera, but like it's not Bethesda that made the game, it's the people. And if the people leave, like what's left, right? You have the IP, okay, but like if the people who made that IP great are all gone, what do you have left?
Yeah, I mean, IP is such a fascinating like just thing, right? Like
it became a thing, yeah.
Well,
absolutely. It wasn't always like this.
yeah. I mean, IP is certainly a commodity, right? And so like there is very much like a value that IP has. We see that demonstrated like in the marketplace, right? Being somebody who's like been able to work on and contribute to these big IPs, like you develop this like really like nuanced relationship with like your sense of ownership of a thing, and then the sense of privilege to like participate in that collective ownership. I think that the team that made Daggerfall, which was like hugely influential on me, like that team didn't really exist in the same way by the time I got to Bethesda, right? Even though some of the people who I absolutely idolized because of their work on Daggerfall and Morrowind were still there, and I got the privilege to learn from them. And I was talking with a Bethesda developer recently, or like some silly term that I invented to describe a level design concept. I saw them reference it in like a game developer space, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I guess like that's my legacy. Like you guys are still using this ridiculous term that I made for like a level design concept. And so I think we each kind of get our turn through the revolving door, and you just hope to leave some of your some of the dust from your boots inside the lobby while you're there, and that's nice to be part of that legacy.
What does your experience working on games like that bring with you when you do your own independent projects?
Yeah, I mean, of course there's like a lot of like practical lessons, like you sort of learn to recognize the shape of a problem, and you sort of, develop that gut of like, hey, I've seen this sort of problem before, and I think like we can skip the first 10 steps and go like right to the conclusion of that. So, you get this sort of like professional experience, which can be handy, but then I think you also like, you pine, I think, for like two things, right? You pine for the things that you really loved doing that you want to do again. Like I'm doing like very hands-on level design, in a first-person environment, which is like a thing I haven't gotten to do for some number of years, and I love just like getting to do the craft of that again. And I think you also pine for the things you like wanted to do but didn't get the chance to do, right? Like with Burgess Sky, getting to like craft an original IP and like see what that's like, and like, golly, this is really hard, and like we don't have a model for like how we should answer this question. We have to invent it. I think that's what you bring, right? You bring both lessons and aspirations, and I think if you only bring the lessons, it can lead to sort of like best case boredom and worst case arrogance, right? That you know what to do and because you've done it a million times before. But being thrust in a situation where you have to do something fresh with new collaborators, it really humbles you when you're reminded time and time again that everybody knows something that you don't, and just gives you a chance to just learn.
What's your view on the state of just game development and video games in 2025 in general?
Yeah, I mean, look, games have always been hard to make. Games have always been risky, as a business. That's not changed. Everything does feel elevated right now because it is. But I think that games are cyclical. But what's not cyclical is the entrenchment of games in the mainstream, right? Games are just culture now. There
is no more gamer, right? It's integrated into our society. Everyone does it now. It's a standard thing, like watching TV or listening to a radio program, or reading the paper.
Yeah. It's a label that some people might reject or not be associated with or whatever. But sorry, grandma's a gamer too,
yeah,
right? Everybody is playing a game of some form, and that's beautiful and that's great, right? But that is non-cyclical. That is a line that has gone inexorably up. So I think the business environment that we're in and the impact that's having on the types of games that get made and how they're funded and all of that, I don't know if that will cycle back or how fast or what impact it'll have, but players exist and players are sophisticated and they're smart and people are I think hungry. I think the interest in things like cleaning games, right, show that people are hungry for new experiences that step out of of what we assume they want to be have shoveled in their direction. So I don't fear for the place that we're in as an industry right now. I think it's really hard for folks, and there's a lot of people who have been professionally affected in super negative ways in the past few years that I don't that are bad, right? But I think our medium is only going to get better with time. Our audience is only going to get better with time, and it's going to create space for new forms of play and new stories.